France 24's international affairs editor, Rochelle Ferguson-Bouyahi, who is here. Great to see you, Rochelle.
You too, Yinka.
So why has Rubio dismissed the idea that this is an attempt to repair relations with the Vatican with Washington?
Well, look, I think one of the key reasons for this is if Rubio suggests that ultimately this is about papering the cracks with the Vatican, he'd first have to accept that Trump has gone too far in his remarks and these scathing attacks on the Pope. That's certainly something that he decided not to talk about before heading on to the flight en route to Rome. And clearly, as we've seen with our correspondent saying there, Donald Trump has reignited these criticisms of Pope Leo this week anyway. So there's clearly no stepping down. There's no climb down from the US there. Asked about it earlier, Rubio said simply this isn't tied to anything in particular. This trip was planned. It was supposed to happen. So, let's see how it goes. It's, nothing new that we'd speak with the Vatican. So that's the first thing. I think what we need to look at here is how the Vatican is seeing this. The Vatican will see this as a way to climb down from this very frosty rhetoric that has been ongoing now. The Vatican wanting to get back to the days when diplomacy between the United States and the Vatican simply happened out of the public eye. There wasn't this spat, there wasn't this tit for tat from both sides. It's of no gain for the Vatican for these kind of conversations between the Pope and the American president to be taking place in the public domain. Another thing which I think is interesting is if Rubio, who is a staunch Catholic himself, if he's able to ease tensions here, this will be good news for Donald Trump. Why? Let's remind our viewers that the re-election of Donald Trump came in part because a lot of Catholics voted for him. They will be quite, shocked by this ongoing spat between the Pope and the US president. They will want Donald Trump to climb down ultimately. Let's remember that Pope Leo has an incredibly high rating currently in the United States. He's coming up to 1 year in the job, and as far as Americans are concerned, he's doing pretty well indeed. So Donald Trump has a great deal to be gained from all of this. A reminder, of course, Pope Leo has said that in 2026 there will be no papal visit to the United States. So this is really a key time for Rubio to set the record straight, to paper the cracks between the US and the Vatican before, of course, midterm elections, which Donald Trump has his eyes clearly set on.
Well, Rochelle, could there be areas that the US and the Vatican could agree or even disagree on during this visit?
Well, look, in terms of what they're going to disagree on, we know we've spoken about Iran. Of course, Pope Leo has been very vocal on that. There will also be high on the agenda, one can imagine today at the Vatican, the treatment of migrants and those who are marginalised. That's, of course, key for the Vatican, who want people to be treated equally. If you think of ICE agents in the United States and all the controversy that there's been around that, that's having an impact on the country, even when it comes to unemployment for, US citizens. So that's in terms of discord. There'll be AI as well, which is increasingly gaining momentum. And of course, those crucial, drastic cuts to US aid. So lots of things to disagree on, that's for certain. One of the things they might agree on is Cuba. The Vatican has excellent diplomatic relations with Cuba. They've recently been quite instrumental in freeing up political prisoners in Cuba. The US administration itself has donated $6 million US dollars in humanitarian aid, which Rubio says actually has not been distributed. So they say they'd like to work hand in hand with the Catholic Church to ensure that Cubans can access that aid. So that's, one area where they might go on. Also, our correspondent mentioned it there, this idea of Christians within Africa. We know that Pope Leo has just come back from a trip there. Also, Lebanon with the ongoing issue there. So there are some areas where they could ultimately find some middle ground, and that, as I said earlier, would be very useful for Donald Trump as these midterm elections, come towards us.
Rochelle, grateful to have that breakdown from you. Thank you so much for that.